share with me, share with everyone watching, how is it that you, who to me are very popular and famous, and I would recognize you anywhere if for no other reason that you're a giant, and I don't mean personality-wise, I mean literally height-wise.
Oh.
And your hair is fantastic, and your eyebrows are, iconic.
They are large.
Yeah. So on Who is America, how is it that people, have you ever been busted? Has anyone ever gone, oh, you're Ali G, or you're Borat? Do they know?
So we did tests beforehand with Who is America to see whether there was a way of me just wearing a wig or a moustache or that kind of thing to see whether people would see through it. And I wore some massive wig for one thing and sort of a moustache. And then I walked into this gun store, actually. And the guy immediately looked at me, and I could see his eyes go...
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And immediately he goes, I know you. So with recognition, it happens within the first second. It's like those algorithms, so the facial recognition systems, there's a part of the brain that actually recognizes the face and works out the kind of, algorithm and the
architecture of your face. And
the difference between the eyes and the angles between all of that kind of stuff. So as a result, I realized I'd have to do more extreme stuff. And after Bruno, which was a movie I did, I realized, I can't do this kind of stuff anymore because it's
and very little makeup in Bruno, right? I mean,
there was just the
prosthetics. It was just the wig.
Yeah, I mean, Bruno was really hard because Borat, which I thought was going to be this kind of tiny indie movie, exploded.
Yeah.
And then a year afterwards, I'm going undercover again. And we thought, how the hell do I do this? And one of the simplest things we did was I wore a wig that lowered the size of my forehead. So Borat's got a really big forehead. Suddenly, if you've got a lower forehead, it was somehow that confused people.
Right.
But as a result, when I was shooting Bruno, because I was so scared of getting recognized because it was so easy to recognize me, I ended up basically living in this kind of trailer for about 6 months. And it was a horrible experience because we were, in West Virginia in this tiny little RV, not able to go outside when everyone was having lunch.
Oh, man.
So I went to Rick Baker, who was the...
I was going to say, it looked like a Rick Baker job. It needed to be a Rick Baker job.
So Rick Baker, and as the guys out there probably know, was like the 6 or 7-time Oscar-winning prosthetics and makeup guy who did all the Eddie Murphy stuff.
Right.
And I said, listen, do you think you've got the technology to have prosthetics but outside in the real world? And this was, I think, 2009. And he said, it's not there yet. Cut to 3 years ago, one of his proteges, who's this brilliant guy called Tony Gardner, who created actually the prosthetics for this movie called Bad Grandpa, which was fantastic. He should have got nominated. But I went to him and I go, what do you think? Do you think, you could create prosthetics good enough that they would exist in the real world? Because I can't be touched really for like 3 hours. There's no...
Yeah, they can't come in and make sure the glue is holding.
Yeah, Dick Cheney, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let me glue that down a little bit more.
Tack your ear back down.
Yeah, so it's like, can they exist and can we even do it outside? And so really, I mean, the prosthetics achievement in this, I think, is unrivaled. There's been incredible prosthetics beforehand, but the idea that you could fool real people in broad daylight.
Yeah, it's like
a real
up close, sleight of hand card tricks, magic tricks. I mean, the Israeli character that you played, I mean, that's an extreme different look. There's a lot going on up there.
Yeah, so all those prosthetic looks are, you get up at 3:30 in the morning and it's 5 to 6 hours, transfer, because you put on an entirely new head.
Yeah.
And it's layers and layers and layers, and then it's an hour taking off it.
And then you sweat inside of that.
You sweat, and so when you take it off, it's actually really good for your skin because you're
very
covered in
hydrating.
sweat. You're completely wet underneath.
Yeah.
And you're originally Caucasian, right?
Exactly.
And you felt that there was this niche and this opportunity to get into Hollywood.
Seemed like there was
Tell me about that.
Well, it seemed
I think it's great. I mean, up close, it's...
You can't even tell.
No, I can sort of see some of the bits going through, but it's so who does it?
Well, I can't reveal his name.
Yeah.
He's worked with a lot of actors in the business.
Who else has he done?
Eddie Murphy, like you mentioned.
Yeah, he was originally.
So he was Asian.
Yeah.
So he had to go through.
Yeah.
Imagine what he had to go through for the clumps.
Yes, for years.
So first he had to get to Eddie, and then he had to get to. And when he plays, the guys that he plays in the barbershop and Coming to America.
That's originally. So wait a minute. So apparently Eddie Murphy originally actually is an old Jewish man.
Right.
And that's actually
they
him.
went Asian, Black, Jewish.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was a lot of work.
Yeah,
it seemed like
true.
for just a couple jokes in a movie.
Yeah, but I respect that. Good.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Not every strange man you meet gonna be friendly and non-threatening like me.
Today, we're going to teach you how you can stop these naughty men and have them take a long nap.
That's right, and that's why you're going to meet a friend of mine. His name is Papi Pistol.
For me, like, the visuals of the character, like, really important. I know, like, some actors, it's the shoes or the way they walk. What about with you when you're creating a character? And obviously, Black Monday is it's an extreme character. I mean, it's great. It's completely believable, but it's definitely you went all the way there. So how do you create a character?
Well, it depends on the character. For Mo in Black Monday, it was a process of that, of like going through hair transformation and going through facial hair and trying to figure out, is this mustache too big? What's the right size? Because as you well know, you can go to clown size and it's like it loses all reality, and it's now some sort of a comment on the thing as opposed to trying to really be the person. So all of that stuff is to attenuate that and like try to figure what that is very. There's no science to it. You're just trying to figure out what you feel.
Yeah.
And the clothes are always a huge part of it too, right? You get into a certain costume, and you're like, oh, I feel like this guy, and we never know what it's going to be. But sometimes you're like, just that jacket and not that jacket. It just
and
makes
do you feel when you put it on, the character comes out there, or is it? Or are you deriving it more from the words?
It's definitely what's on the page first. It's definitely what the writers have created, and as much source material as you can get. If there's, you interview the people that were in the field, if you read the books that they've written, or you just. There was a guy that I is a friend of mine who was a Wall Street trader that I really tried to download a lot of his stories and him to give me some just sort of his real life experience in the world.
So was it based on? Wasn't based on. There was no real character who was this huge.
No, it's a very much a what if. What if this group of traders at this time were in this time period, and what all the things that they would have to deal with.
Yeah.
And what if this group of traders made a trade that's so toxic it triggered the collapse?
Yes.
So that's where it was, and so it's obviously it's comedy. Everything's pushed, but you find it in different ways. It's music sometimes does it. There's a piece of music that just somehow speaks to the character, and you're like.
So tell me about that. So are you playing it in your ear before the scene, or?
No, it's just more in the preparation of kind of finding him and putting him together, and you read with I know you write, like when I write, sometimes I write with certain music on.
Yeah.
Or there'll be a piece of art that just somehow speaks to you, and it's kind of nebulous how it all comes together, but you sort of cobble together a bunch of stuff, and you go, oh, those shoes, and you put on those shoes, and you're like, I feel like this dude now.
Bet you didn't think you'd see this me again. This guy, me!
I am very glad you're here.
Really?
Yeah. I would like a tuna fish sandwich, hold the carrots, and a Crystal Pepsi. Anybody?
No, I'm the guy from the floor with the cocaine.
Oh. Hey, Coke guy's here.
Yeah, I know. It's an interesting, because I'm thinking the first time I ever performed Borat, I knew I wanted to do a foreign character, and this was early in my career. I'm 24 years old. I'm driving in the car down to the East End of London, and in the back of my car, I find this hat that I bought in the south of Russia, an Astrakhan hat. I stuck it on my head, and I was like, looked in the mirror, I was like, yes, I'm from Moldova, Tel Aviv, because I didn't know the nationality until I stuck something on my head. And it just happened to be
popped out. Right.
Yeah, it happened to be in the back of my car.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
And everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And you're playing these characters who, that are rather, you go to some dangerous places. It's very, it's very provocative, and you tend to, the ones that I see, especially on Who Is America, that's sort of where it lives. It seems like that's the goal. You're trying to get people to that place where they're sort of vibrating in this area where it's very dangerous, and you don't, I don't know if you have busted takes where you break character, but it doesn't seem like you come out of character. It seems like
I don't.
when
No.
you get there, that's when you're locked in, and these prompts come that you couldn't have anticipated. But it looks like, well, did he plan that? He couldn't have planned to go, will you cut your pubes and put them in this artwork with me? But it's like, boom, the opportunity's there, and you just seize on it. It's like, you're not planning on that, but you're sort of planning for those moments. How does that kind of work?
So my attitude has always been, I want to do as much preparation as I can for a scene, but in the scene, you never know exactly what they're going to say. But
Right.
you don't, they're human beings.
Yeah.
They don't
There's
know
no
they're in a
script for
scene.
them. Yeah.
Pardon me. So if they,
I got all the way over here.
Yeah, I just got carried away with the emotion. That was one of my
No,
other
that was
characters.
a belch.
Yeah.
That wasn't emotion.
No. That was really just the character creation process.
You should change it.
So you come with as much preparation as you can, covering every possibility that you think. But then if something arises in a scene, you go, okay, forget all of that. Be prepared to throw it all away, and I'm going with it. I remember I once did a scene on the original Ali G show. I was playing this character, Bruno, this gay Austrian fashionista. We were in a New York club where there was some, sort of runway show was happening. And I was meant to, we had a whole plan for what I was meant to do.
Right.
But then basically security got on me. They knew that I was causing trouble elsewhere, and they were looking for me. I ended up having to
go.
hide. I hid and went backstage
Right.
with the models. And actually, I remember Paris Hilton was there. She was a model at the time. And I just had to make it all up. I was like, okay. They go, what are you doing back here? I go, I'm actually a model. I'm Kreisler. I created this Austrian design. I'm Kreisler's muse. It's really good. Could I join the fashion show? And they're like, what? Who? I spoke to their head designer, and he goes, I'm Kreisler's muse. You're really kind of lucky for me to be here. And in the end, meanwhile, my crew's outside. They don't know where I've gone.
Right.
They start shooting the fashion show, and I appear as one of the models. Because I was like, how do I save the scene? I can't go outside because security are looking for me.
Yeah.
So I managed to convince them that I was this, famous, designer's muse in Austria. And I ended up in this fashion show.
So see, that's like high wire act stuff. Obviously we improv in our
Yes.
show, and we find our ways into scenes sometimes that way. But we always have the safety of cut. Let's go again.
Yeah.
But you're kind of hanging out there.
You've got, the scenes on Who Is America, at minimum are going to take an hour and a half, but there was one scene that went over 2 days. So you're with a group of people who you have to keep consistent with for 2 days. It was a thing I did with the Women's March, where I train up a group of people to combat and infiltrate Antifa, the anti-fascist group,
Right.
because they're the biggest threat in America.
Yes.
And
it must be stopped.
Yeah, and then I take one of them actually to the Women's March in San Francisco undercover to stop this terrorist threat, and he ends up murdering 3 liberals. Well, he thought he did. Yeah.
What?
So it's quite interesting because it's operating on a few levels. So we get a group of people, 3 guys who are on social media who are spouting kind of racist and misogynistic stuff and repeating some of the president's stuff, of his saying they're kind of good people on both sides after Charlottesville. And they start, there are people who are kind of believing these conspiracy theories online. One of the conspiracy theories is that Antifa, which are kind of a disparate group of people who just come out and stand up against the alt-right,
Right.
that they are somehow a dangerous group and they're very violent and they are, actually a terrorist group. I get them in a gym, 3 of these guys. I train them up in how to infiltrate this group Antifa. Then I choose one of them. I brought him to the Women's March in San Francisco, and I told him, I said, listen, there's actually, there's going to be a terrorist attack today. And I was like, Antifa are getting this virus. They're going to put it in all the diapers of all the babies. The babies will put on the diapers, and then they will become transgender. And he goes, oh my God, you know, all the babies in
have to stop
America are
this,
going to become
right?
transgender. This is the end of the world.
Right.
And basically, I get him to put tracking devices on members of Antifa. They're just like
Yeah.
general kind of
Yeah,
nice
a 9-volt battery. Or
yeah, they were like
something.
nice women in the
Right.
Women's March. And then at one point I say, okay, we're going to have to blow them up now. And I get out this iPad. I go, they're actually tracking devices. We can see where they are, and they've got this small little explosive device. I'm going to, if you just press it, it's going to make a tiny little explosion, enough to deactivate the heart. But no one will track it to me or you. Let's just do it and get rid of it. And amazing. I mean, that was a real kind of question to me, whether I could get somebody who believed in this conspiracy theory that had actually been partly spread by the president. You go, okay, there's this conspiracy theory that the people who are standing up against fascists are
The real
dangerous.
terrorists, yeah.
They're the real baddies.
Yeah.
You know, what's the logical conclusion from that? So what's, you know, there's this big debate in society at the moment, which is what's the level of free speech that we should have?
Mm-hmm.
Should social media allow anyone to say anything?
That's right.
Or should there be some limits? You know, we operate on channels where there are standards and practices.
That's right.
So should there be standards and practices? So that's the kind of big debate. So one of the arguments against any restriction is, well, listen, it's just
First Amendment.
words.
Yeah, it's free
First
speech.
Amendment's just words.
Yeah.
And my question, what we're trying to see is what's the effect of allowing conspiracy theories to spread and having the most powerful man in the world help spread those conspiracy theories? And so the ultimate test was, could you get somebody who believed in this conspiracy theory to murder people as a result of that conspiracy theory? You can't, you know, the two are, you know, there's a
There is
line.
a line, yeah.
So what is the effect, you know, of, you know, are these conspiracy theories actually dangerous? And the amazing thing, and it was amazing to us, was he was ready to murder, but only because he believed that Antifa, the anti-fascists, were dangerous.
So in that moment, when you've actually exposed that, that's kind of, I mean, internally you're not doing it outside, but that's kind of a victory lap
Yes.
inside, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's depressing, but...
Exactly, it's both.
So
Yeah.
I'm in the... I mean, you must experience stuff like this as well. I'd be interested to find out if you do. So you're operating on two levels, where you're going, you're in character, you're carrying on with the scene, not breaking character, but internally, part of you is going, bing, that's great. That's a really, that minute and a half is going to be great.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in your scenes, do you also have that where, you know, you're improvising or you're doing a scene, are you aware that it's a great take or a great improv, but you're still staying in character? Do you have that kind of duality?
I mean, you obviously, we're there, we can third eye these things. You want to not do that. You want to hopefully just be a part of it and be caught up in the thing, but we know what the scene's going to be. You know how it's built, where you want it to peak, where you want it to fall away, and it doesn't always do that there. Sometimes it does it here, sometimes it does it here, and you go back and try to fix it as many times as you can, which is not that many times on TV because you got to move.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you have a feeling of when something kind of works.
Yeah.
But you know, I say it to people a lot. It's like, it's kind of, I like to wash dishes, and I like to sweep, and I like to do very sort of basic things because I know it's done. I wash this cup, I put it over there, the cup was dirty, now it's clean. That's not amorphous, it's not something I'm like, did I wash the cup?
Yeah.
Did it really get clean? You know, you know.
Yeah.
In our thing, sometimes you don't know. You hope it works.
Yeah.
You're not sure if it's all going to come together, and you have to go through a whole post process. And somebody else is going to touch it, and they're going to try to make it and tweak it. And you just never know until the thing's done.
So, in the kind of undercover stuff that I've done, you almost, what's going on is there is this, you know, I'm in character. I'm trying everything I can not to break character, otherwise the scene's over. But I'm also editing in my mind at the same time and saying, okay, have we got this? Can I move on now? Because I don't have, you know, the great thing, you know, when I've done, you know, scripted stuff is you have a director going, got it, moving on.
Yeah.
So I internally have to be that guy who says, got it, moving on, but I'm doing that internally.
Well, you're editing it, but you're also conducting in a way.
Yeah.
You're directing while you're in the moment, because I think you're probably doing both. You can tell me, but it seems like you're trying to allow it to go where you want it to go.
Yeah.
But you also have an idea about where it fits inside the whole
Yes.
landscape of what you're trying to do. So without totally manipulating it, you're trying to lead it, it seems like, in a certain direction too. And you
Yeah.
have to kind of be trying to do both at the same time. And,
Yeah.
and in this atmosphere, you already spoke to it a little bit, but in this atmosphere where you have, yes, the person who sits in the highest office supercharging a lot of this stuff, is that what gave the inspiration to This Is America? Was it specifically about Trump's the election that we went through and the election process that we went through that I have all this fodder now?
Yes, it was specifically that. So
Who is America, not This America? Sorry.
No. But under Obama, there was no motivation to do it. I thought I would never do this kind of undercover stuff again because it's exhausting. It's terrifying for me. It's occasionally dangerous. And then Trump gets in, and I immediately felt disappointed and then angry.
Mm.
And as you know, we're creative people, and you go, how do we get rid of this anger? I started, like a lot of my friends, sending articles, forwarding them to other people. It wasn't doing anything. And I was, there were some people, Trump got in and they had, they couldn't sleep. This was a guy who'd got in who I'd had no respect for a long time. I'd interviewed him as Ali G.
Yeah, prior to the whole.
Yes,
yeah.
in the prior movie, he ends up contracting HIV, and that itself was a process with the studio allowing that to happen. And in Borat, I defecated in front of the Trump Tower. So this was somebody who I had.
He was on your radar for a minute.
He was on my radar. So wait a minute, that guy becomes the president, and he gets to be the president through adopting and pushing forward these despicable views that were so reprehensible that everyone dismissed him and thought there's no way that he'll get to be president because of that. That was so upsetting. And then also those first 30 or so days of the presidency were so unsettling when he was with Bannon, and it was kind of this shock and awe policy where I remember, Saturday morning there was suddenly a ban on, these countries which happen to be Muslim countries.
That's right.
And it was completely unsettling. And I think people felt powerless. And I thought, I have to do something just for myself. I did not for a moment think they would have any impact. But I thought, I have to do something with this anger and frustration.
To get yourself out
and
of that.
disgust. I have to do something. And so there was an attempt to target some of the people around him who he had championed and spoken up for and given respect to. Joe Arpaio and Judge Roy Moore and Corey Lewandowski, and even people who had been tenuously connected, with like Congress Rohrabacher, who ended up losing his seat to. There had been a comment beforehand that the only two people who the Kremlin had paid were Rohrabacher and Trump. So there was a decision to go after these people but it was a personal thing.
When you do have someone that you want to go after, somebody who you want to put in the hot seat that seems to not realize they're in the hot seat, and you go, I want to go after them for a certain, how do you pick a character? How do you figure out what's the door? How do you get to them? How do you get past their team? Because how aren't you vetted more properly where people go, you can't talk to this guy. How do you get in there?
I can't tell you any of that.
You can't?
I can't tell you some of it, actually, but yes. I mean, I would say in terms
Generally,
the characters are designed to appeal to some of the people that I was trying to speak to.
Right.
So the character creation is a kind of reverse character creation. Isn't, I'm going to create a funny character and what can I do with the character? It's more like, who
do
Who
you
would
want to
sit
talk
to-
to?
yes.
Who would Dick Cheney sit across
Yes.
from and ultimately then sign their waterboard kit?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And no one jump up and go, stop the interview right now.
Yeah. So that's that's kind of how it works. And then you have to think, which is stage 2, which is, okay, we've got Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney's agreed to do this. How am I going to convince one of the most cynical, suspicious,
Yeah.
brilliant minds that I'm real? And how am I going to convince him to say some things that he's ultimately going to regret? And that then becomes just a process of fully learning your character.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that there are no holes in your character. I use this term sometimes when I start a scene that I'm locked in. So it means that when you inhabit a character, and I want to talk to you about this as well, when I go into inhabit a character, I want to ensure that there's no way to perceive that the character's not real.
Mm-hmm.
So that any question asked of you, or any
Yes, yeah.
performance, or any movement, or any story has to be consistent with the overall character.
Right.
Otherwise,
Yeah, it's
somebody
blown.
goes, wait a minute, hold on,
Where are you from?
yeah,
Yeah.
you're walking a strange way for somebody who was in the
Yeah.
Israeli army, especially,
Right.
or wait a minute, you're staying in that hotel? That doesn't
Yeah,
make
he would
sense.
never stay there, right?
And Dick Cheney, who's a smart guy, before he started the interview, he said, listen, before we start, I want to know something about who's interviewing me. He goes, soldier, will you sit down? And I was wearing a military uniform. And he said, tell me about your military career. And luckily,
Now, did you get a hint when he was saying this that he was suspicious and that he
Yes.
had a whiff of something?
Yeah.
Or that he just generally wanted to, this was the general test, this was the litmus test?
He's an extremely smart guy.
Right.
And one thing he knows about is, the
Trying to
military.
gotcha. Oh,
Yeah.
the military, right.
So he knew it was the best way to find out whether I was talking nonsense or not, whether I was a fake or not. So I think, yes, he was slightly suspicious. Luckily, an hour and a half beforehand, I'd sat with the guy whose uniform I had borrowed, who used to be in
Mossad guy?
special op,
Oh, special.
not a Mossad guy, he'd be a special ops Israeli army guy
Mhm.
who we'd brought in. We had so many weapons that we were carrying around DC for 3 days because we were doing this thing on guns and the
Yeah.
NRA.
Yeah.
So we had a truck full of, semi-automatic and automatic weapons that we were carrying around DC. So we brought in a weapons expert. He happened to be an Israeli guy. And I said to him, I go, listen, I'm going to sit here and get made up for the next hour. Tell me everything about your military history. And he goes, okay. He goes, at the age of 7, I went to school. I carried a lunchbox in one hand and a gas mask in the other. And then he tells me about his military history, every operation he did. Dick Cheney comes in and goes, tell me about your military career. I go, Mr. Cheney, when I was 7 years old, I went to school. I had a gas mask in one hand, and a lunchbox in the other.
Right.
And then I went through all the operations, and he knew about some of the operations that hadn't made it out. And so he was convinced that was real.
Wow. And is your team sitting there, or is there ever a moment where they're going, we need to start it now, where it's like they're risking that the cover is going to be blown, that we're thinking we have to
Well, they were
move?
terrified there. There's not many people, on set, but they are obviously terrified. Vice President Cheney is quizzing
Yeah,
me
he's
for
quizzing
half an
you.
hour.
Yeah.
And they didn't know that I'd
That you had
been
done
downloaded with all this military history.
And how do you remember? You're prioritizing, I mean, clearly.
I'm trying to, when that guy's downloading stuff to me, I'm trying to remember everything. And I'm trying to kind of a short-term
Yeah.
memory. And I'll jot down, 5 or 6 words. And those will be kind of memory reminders.
I know some of you are thinking, okay, this is just another typical mask. This, guys, is going to be the world's largest mosque outside of the Middle East.
When you did Hotel Rwanda, what's your kind of preparation for a part like that?
Well, that was a very interesting movie because Paul Rusesabagina, the man that I was portraying in the movie, was there the whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Which
great.
was very daunting,
Yeah.
to finish a take and come over to him and, say, was that? What do you think? You know,
Yeah.
or not say, what do you think, and not make eye contact with them, just go right to the trailer. And it was very, yeah, it was very challenging. And there were survivors from the Rwandan
Wow.
genocide who were extras in the film. So there was a lot of pressure that we felt to get it right. And yes, especially with the accent, the just the entire characterization, sort of being locked in, like you're talking about, staying in that character all day long, and
So you would stay in it offset as well?
yeah, I would not when I went home. That I
Yeah.
would decompress because you kind of have to, you
Yeah.
just have to. But on the set with my family, with the other people around me, I would always stay in as much as I could, stay in the character. And one day, one of the guys that played one of the characters in it, Dubé, came up and he started speaking to me in Kinyarwandan.
Oh, wow. So he
And
believed you that
He just
much.
forgot. He
Yeah.
just started, and I said, "You know that?" He was like, "Oh, right." And I was like, "Okay,
Well, that's great.
This
That's
is
the
going
ultimate
good."
compliment.
Yeah, that's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
But yeah, to try to get as many pieces of research as you can, and it's invaluable having Paul there, having his wife Tatiana there, their kids were there. So there was a lot of resources which made that.
But that's
very
what I've
good.
seen is that you fully inhabit the characters. There's no way you could see those two characters as being played by the same person, in Hotel Rwanda and Black Monday. So
Well, it's what you're saying. It's what you have that total buy-in.
Yeah.
You just buy in. We are able to, as actors, go to that place where
Yeah.
we're like, I'm just in there.
I get driven in a Lamborghini limousine, AKA a Lambo limo, AKA a limbo.
So you get none of the speed of a Lamborghini and none of the comfort of a limousine?
Yeah, but it costs twice as much as both. This guy's not a car guy. You're not a car guy.
I don't like your
You don't know about cracks. Who are you, Faf?
So what is it? Marvel?
Marvel,
Marvel.
M-A-R-V-E-L, with a V.
Okay, tell me about the marbles. You're
No,
into.
no, Marvel. It's a V.
You
Yeah.
play in
War
marbles,
Machine.
or you?
M-A-R-V-E-L.
Okay.
Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah, MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So tell me, actually. So you're in the biggest movie of all time.
It looks like it may be. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think the results are still out.
That came off almost as modest. But
I was trying to be glib.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
huge. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So how's that experience of, okay, so you've done, brilliant sort of Oscar-winning fare, and then you're in this, and they're quality movies, but how do you take them as seriously? What's the atmosphere and set and the preparation for
Well,
that? like?
what's so funny is that, there's never been an experience on a film that I've ever had that's a shared experience with all the actors where
Yeah.
we're looking around going, what are we doing?
Yeah.
There's so much of that process that is unknown.
Yes.
Because you're in 360-degree,
Yes.
green screen, and you have a previs, the pre-visualization, and it's showing you what's going to happen, but that's not what's happening when you're on the set. So you're having to really
So it's
sort
just
of
people holding
imagine.
up green tennis balls.
Yeah, it's like a hug by smoking. It's nebula,
Yeah.
But there's so much trust that you have to have with
Yes.
the filmmakers because you don't know. You're totally in their hands. But we have good ones. So.
And is it hard to take the scenes seriously?
No, I think if you're going to do it, you're always trying to find that buy-in. And if it is hard to believe and we don't believe it, we
Yeah.
press them to change it. And
Yeah.
we really.
But ultimately, you're in a big, blue hangar?
A lot of
or-
times you're in a big hangar, you're
Yeah.
in a big sound stage with 360-degree and characters that aren't there, actors that aren't there. You're doing scenes sometimes with stand-ins for characters because they're
Yeah.
at second unit doing other things that they have to do, big stunt scenes over here.
Yeah. And
So
is that
it's-
harder to perform?
It can be. It's very technical. It can be a very technical experience some days. Some days all the actors are there and you're just dealing with people and it's great. But
I mean, do you prefer to act opposite Robert Downey
mirror?
Jr. or opposite a tennis ball pretending to be Robert
I
Downey?
thought you were going to say a mirror.
Yeah.
No, it's good when Robert's there. The tennis ball doesn't have as great hair.
Yeah.
As
It does have
Robert.
it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it's a tennis ball, Downey
Yeah.
Jr. I have one last question for you, Mr. Cohen. I don't know if you can talk about it. Was there ever a time on the show where you were? I mean, there are probably several times, but what was the time when you went, okay, this is I probably went too far. I mean, I remember a moment where it seemed where I saw you in there go like, how far am I going to push this? Where the guy said, and if you say it one more goddamn time, I'm going to punch you right in the face. And you're like, do I go
Yeah.
one more? Do I say it again, or what
Yeah.
do I do? When you were saying he was in Bruno, I think when you
Yes,
were going,
yeah, yeah,
but
that
you're
was the
obviously
allegation, yeah.
gay. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
and he was
yeah.
like, don't say it again.
Yeah.
And you're like, am I gonna go again?
I remember that. Yeah.
What is? Are there? I mean, are there many moments like that? Are there moments where you're going, I may have crossed the line, and now I'm kind of actually nervous about my safety.
Well, there are two things there. There are things where I am worried about my safety. So there was a scene where I was pitching a mega mosque in a place called Kingman, where
Yeah,
I was
remember
very
that scene.
concerned of. We had to take a lot of weapons off the people in the room because
They came with their weapons.
they came with their weapons.
It's a right to carry state. You're
Yes,
right.
yeah. So we, removed a lot of took their weapons away from them, which is itself a difficult thing. And then we did a scene again, and the problem was they had cars parked outside, and they kept the weapons in the car. So we were concerned that people would bring in their weapons into the room, and they were getting very, very angry that the idea that we would build the world's second biggest mosque in their state,
And you're pushing it.
Yeah, and I'm pushing it. The idea is to, you want to reveal stuff.
Right.
Because what I wanted to tap into there was, okay, it was the lack of self-interest in prejudice. So these are poor white people, and they are going to be made wealthier. It's in their self-interest, in their economic self-interest, for this huge tourist attraction to happen, for their town to have, one of the wonders of the world in. We were going to build the biggest mosque outside of Mecca in their town.
Right.
And we were explaining, how much money they don't get. There'd be, it'd be a tourism hub.
Yeah, the influx of billions of dollars.
They would become wealthy. And the only downside was that there would be a lot of Muslims in the area. And so that was the kind of question, which is, when something's clearly better for you and your family, like, okay, we're going to have a good standard of living,
Right.
And it will mean a different ethnicity coming to our town. How do we feel about that?
Right.
And the interesting result was that some people were saying, well, if that happens, we're going to blow up the mosque. And not only that, one person said, we're going to blow up the dam nearby. And that was a really interesting thing to me about prejudice, that this person was so Islamophobic that he was ready to destroy not only the Muslims, but themselves.
The whole town.
It's actually the self-defeating nature of prejudice.
Right.
That ultimately, those people who support racists or racist leaders, ultimately it's self-defeating. Poor white men are not going to do better if Muslims don't enter the country, if black people don't get equal rights, if gay people don't get, if Mexicans can't come in.
Yeah.
If you look at the economic data, immigration helps the economy, creates more independent businesses, So prejudice is actually inhibits growth. So that, that was the thing I wanted to kind of look at. And obviously in a scene like that, people started saying, first he started threatening me with violence, and they would say, I was asking, okay, are you Muslim? And
I remember that.
They would say, if you say that, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
People got up to fight me, and there's part of you that obviously wants to run out of the room, but part of me wants to actually, I want to push it to the edge where just before a punch or a gun is pulled out, and unfortunately I've been in the situations where guns have been pulled out. But you want to push it to that because that's where it's really fascinating.
Exactly. And
you want to provoke them. And in that particular incident, one person said, well, listen, black people are lucky to be here.
Right.
And I go, oh, yeah, well, yeah, of course they're lucky because, we benefit from, their culture and,
Like, no.
No. They're lucky that we allowed them.
We allowed them to be here, yeah.
So that was kind of, fascinating. So what I'm trying to do is actually push it to the limit of, before this, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I want to see what people's real thoughts are and real beliefs are and what they would say, you know, what you've never seen on television before. So that's, you know, I'm there provoking them sometimes or goading them sometimes to see what's really the effect of this new political culture that we're in. And it's not just Trump. It's, you know, we're in, you know, the biggest revolution that's happened in the history of civilization. We are in the internet age. It's bigger than the Industrial Revolution. It's transformed, you know, the way people think, not just in their attention span, but also, you know, there's this theory that we're in this post-truth age, in that there are so many different sources of truth that no one knows what facts are anymore. So it allows people who are spreading lies to actually seem like they're legitimate. You know, and I want to see what's the effect of somebody who's kind of spreading lies with this kind of, these new means of proliferating it. You know, Twitter, you know, Trump without Twitter probably would not have become president, which is why Jack Dorsey is in the White House having a meeting with Trump.
Where
You know,
they can't get rid of extreme right Twitter accounts because it might affect some of the Republican base.
Exactly. So, you know,
we have to keep that on there. Sorry, guys.
So what's fascinating about that is, you know, he's sitting opposite the president, who is actually the biggest celebrity endorser of his corporation.
That's right.
And, you know, Jack Dorsey and Twitter cannot implement any restrictions against white supremacists or racists.
Because it might affect their big cash cow.
It will affect that cash cow and also their whole business model.
Exactly.
Is they get rid of the racists, they're going to have less Twitter subscribers. So obviously he can claim, oh, I believe in freedom of speech, and obviously I won't, you know, be biased against anyone. When really in society, you know, we want to be biased against those who want to kill people like you or people like me just because of the color of our skin or our ethnicity or because we are different. It's okay to not give those people who want to murder people for being different absolute rights.
Absolutely.
And that we're living in a dangerous society now. We're living in a society where the space that we grew up in, which is, you know, the idea that society is getting better, you know, where black people can get full rights, they can vote, where people are equal despite their differences, that concept is being disintegrated. Democracy is being disintegrated. And that's terrifying for me. And that was kind of the reason why, you know, I went ahead and did it. And I'm going to say all of this with the caveat that I'm a comedian. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but this is just the stuff that's going on in my head.